Welcome to another edition of Everything Football 62. I'm your host, Jonathan Big Tex Johnson. As a kid growing up in Texas, we used to play, obviously we played football a lot. We also play a lot of different sports. A lot of times we used to always play a game that we call either hot ball, kill the man with the football, tackle the man with the football. You throw the ball up, whoever catches the ball, and they run and try to score as many touchdowns as they possibly can without being tackled. Once you got tackled, then you have to throw the ball up the next guy, get the ball, and try to run. One of the main reasons why I'm saying that for is because the game, as a kid coming up there in the mid-70s through the 80s and whatnot, you always look to your running backs. It was always running backs who was the stars at that particular period of time. We had quarterbacks kind of always got the press and everything, but it was always the running back because it was still a game about the running game. So obviously coming up as a young kid, 7, 8 years old, I knew about O.J. Simpson. I knew about Franco Harris. I knew about Walter Payton. I knew about Earl Campbell and all these other different guys that played running back, Chuck Foremans and guys like that, Mark Van Egan and whatnot. But you had, like I said, but you had your Hall of Fame backs, like I said, from O.J. Simpson to Walter Payton to Earl Campbell and to Franco Harris. And O.J. Simpson probably the most dominant back at that particular time. He was the juice and everything. You moved on to the latter part of, you moved on to the 80s and whatnot, and even the 80s with the great Eric Dickerson, and still Walter Payton was still in his prime, and he was still in his prime at that time. Roger Craig, and you had an elder statesman like John Riggins and whatnot, and playing the positions and stuff. You had later on in the 90s, you would have Emmitt Smith. You had Barry Sanders. You had latter part of the 80s. You had guys like Terrell Davis. You had the great Thurman Thomas. Thurman Thomas and with him, early part of the 2000s, and from guys like Adrian James, LaDainian Tomlinson, the great LaDainian Tomlinson. You had Sean Alexander, who had a couple of good years in the league and everything, and getting close to where we are at now. And then around after LaDainian Tomlinson, basically after he kind of slowed down and everything, by the time 2007 came about, you had a back coming in the league by the name of Adrian Peterson, who went to the University of Oklahoma from out of Palestine, Texas. Great back, and he's still playing to this day. Bringing this up because, of course, of the free agent market, he hasn't signed with anybody. He left the Minnesota Vikings after being there for right at 10 years, I believe, and not being signed. We know he will be signed eventually. Bringing this up to say that what are the other great backs? Is he the last of the great backs that's probably going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer? Because you really don't have any other backs. Are there any other backs to step up and have been as consistent as he's basically been almost in the past decade? And when you really start to look at it, because really running the football or players being taken extremely high in the draft, or not at all being your high draft picks anymore. You had Mike Shanahan, who started this particular trend, who wasn't really picking up backs in the first round anymore like they used to in previous years for years. And he devised up a system, and you had Terrell Davis that did great things, and after he left, you had other backs that plugged in and stepped into that, plus with that the athletic lineman and the zone blocking that was going on, and it was churning out 12 and 1,300 yard rushers. After a few, 3 or 4 different 12, 13, 1,400 yard rushers, even 1,500 yard rushers, even after Terrell Davis was gone. So that was showing that, we can find a back in the second, in the third and fourth round. It doesn't matter and whatnot. Well, and because now with the pass-happy league and everything's geared to passing and the quarterback and throwing for all of these yards, therefore you don't have a stern running back. So basically in 2007, you had Adrian Peterson burst onto the scene. And Adrian Peterson has put a lot of great work in over the years. And he also has rushed for 2,000 yards, 2,097 yards back in the 2012 season. I say Adrian Peterson has been the most consistent back, a 4-time All-Pro. Unfortunately for him, a couple of times he had a real bad injury. He came back. He came back with an injury that he had. I believe that might have been 2014. I believe, well, not 2014. I think that might have been It was 2011. Had a real bad injury in the last few games of the season. But that's something that's going to take him 2 years to get back. That's when he came back and actually rushed for 2,097 yards. And decent season the next after that. And then 2014, unfortunately, some legal problems that came. They actually kept him out of the. Basically, he missed the whole season. And then he came back in 2015 with led the league with 1,485 yards. And then last year he basically missed, because of an injury, he basically missed all the games. All but three, ended up playing in 3 games, I believe. So he missed about 13 games. Well, he's a free agent now, like I said a little earlier. And Adrian Peterson was probably the most consistent back, except for a couple of the mishaps that he had along the way with injuries and legal problems. Other than that, he's the most consistent back of at this time, about 6-time All-Pro, 4-time All-Pro first team that he is. And it really hasn't been any other backs that has been even consistent, or that you probably even will look at, that's going to be from that class, like you would have like an Emmitt Smith or Barry Sanders or guys like that, was going to be these particular types of Hall of Fame backs that would be coming up, that would be coming up around, that played around this era. You've had guys since then. You had guys like Arian Foster. You've had LaShawn McCoy. You've had like I said, Arian Foster, Jamal Charles, Chris Johnson. A lot of these different backs that came was All-Pro, first team of the year, 2 here or there, a second team here or there, led the league in rushing here or there. But it's either injuries, it's either some type of injury or some type of thing that happens off the maybe off the field. Guys like Ray Rice, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of backs, Maurice Jones-Drew, I should say, nice back, ended up retiring early. Just these backs and everything. Now the case is still out on guys like LaShawn McCoy. The case is still out on guys like him because he's still basically young, and he's had a pretty good. But he has a tendency to get hurt every now and then and miss some games. But for the most part, we'll see what ends up happening with him, because he's playing over there in Buffalo. And I'm just, like I said, saying all that to basically say is that, where are the dominant backs at? And this is a time now, because it was good to see the fact that when you had Ezekiel Elliott for the Cowboys from Ohio State that played, and he ended up basically leading the league in rushing with over 1,600 yards, 1,680 something to be, 1,685 I think, that he rushed for. And that was a great thing to see, that the running game was being established, which actually started with Dallas back in 2014 with DeMarco Murray. And you've had that. Now you got Davian Bell from out of Pittsburgh. If he just stays healthy and off the field issues, being suspended for marijuana use and all these different things like this, I was like, this could be another great back, because Pittsburgh has always had some pretty great backs that have come through their organization. You got this kid from out of Arizona, David Johnson, had a great year. This past year, and he's looking to be a good back as well. Rushed for over 1,239 yards, 16 touchdowns, and caught 80 passes for 879 yards. And the young man is balling. So Arizona should, after a down year this past year, they should be on the come up this year. To compete like they just did from the 2015 season. So it'd be good to see these backs come up. But I'm just saying, for a little period right now, Adrian Peterson was probably the most consistent back that was coming. And it's like, it's almost like coaches or the league was just basically doing away with running backs and not putting them in their proper place. If you go back to the Super Bowl and see what happened, and Atlanta was supposed to have a pretty good one-two punch running back. A running back, little rotation, or the fullback, tailback type stuff. But it's like when Julio Jones made that great catch, you figured the game was over with. You run the ball, slamming in there a couple of times, game's over with. Of course, we all know how that ended. It's like nowadays teams act like they don't run the ball. If they get inside the 20, all they want to do is try to throw the football. Back years ago, at the time that I was talking about, if you had a stud running back, what you did, you ran him. You ran him. If you threw, because you had to throw, but you was going to run that ball up and try to get 5 yards, 4 yards, Okay, we got a 3rd and 1. Okay, we got that, and we just keep doing that, and we take time off the clock. And if they got a great quarterback on the other end, on the other side, you keep the ball away from him. That's what you go about doing. That's what you do. You milk the clock to your advantage. You keep a great offense off the field. Or better yet, you just wear their defense down. You could still wear, and these like teams have gotten completely away from this, and I'll just throw the ball 50 times a game, which leads to inflated stats that I've talked about numerous of times on my broadcast. So the running back, I think, is getting ready to make a comeback, which is needed. Because like I said, in that game, you slam the ball in that 3 times. Even if you get 3 yards out of that, you've taken time off the clock. And better yet, you kept the other team off the field. But also, better yet, like I said, it takes time off the clock for you to keep the ball as long as you need to keep the ball. When you would get inside your 20 back in these days from the 80s and stuff and going back further, you ran the ball. One of the greater teams that ran the ball in that of the 90s and whatnot was that of the Dallas Cowboys. Those guys ran the ball. You knew when they got in the 20, Emmett was getting that ball. People always say, oh, well, Troy Aikman didn't have no great stats. He didn't have to throw the ball 50 times a game. He might throw the ball 18, 17, 18, 20 times a game, if that. He didn't have to. Now when you had Emmitt Smith and you had that lineup there, you don't have to. Teams still are thinking on this thing where they feel as though that they have to throw the ball 45 times a game. And that's just not the way the game has to be played. Now they play it like that because that's what's going on, but you don't have to play it that way. You don't have to play it that way. You can sit up there and just milk the clock with a great offensive line and a running back and don't put your quarterback in those positions. Yes, sometimes they're going to stuff the run, and that's when your quarterback steps up, and he may have to throw that way. But don't abandon the run as soon as you're down a few points, or we're down by 7, no time to play catch up, and then you go and the quarterback goes in and start throwing the ball 50 times a game. And then that puts a running back on the shelf. He doesn't do anything. Nothing is happening with him. And that's what has happened with the league in the past 15 years. It's like nobody runs the football anymore. You have some of these couple of backs that come in and do pretty good here, then injuries, and then they phased out. They might have 1 or 2 good years and hurt, and you don't see them no more. Issues come up. Chris Johnson ran for 2,000 yards in his second year, thinking he was okay with him and Adrian Peterson neck and neck and stuff like that. Before you know it, his production just completely went down because, well, they didn't really have that. They really wasn't that good, the Titans. And these are the types of things that happen. So when you look at it, Adrian Peterson in the time that he's played, going into I think his 10th or 11th year, then he's getting ready to come in the league, coming in 2017, going into his 11th year. You look at it, he's the last of the dominant backs that probably would be the last year Hall of Fame back, unless some of these guys, because there's not many guys from that particular era that are really that's going into they close to being a decade into the league that's going to be quote unquote considered Hall of Fame candidates, and he's like the last one. And it would be nice to see running backs start being prevalent again in these drafts and start being prevalent on these NFL teams where you don't have to make a quarterback, especially a young quarterback, having them to throw the ball 35, 40 times a game. And that was one of the luxuries of Dak Prescott at Dallas with Ezekiel Elliott, helping him. You follow the running game, help the quarterback learn. It helps because it's the most difficult position to play, to try to get a grasp of when you come into the NFL. It's the most difficult position to play. So that gives him time to learn and learn the offense and whatnot. And your running game is your best friend. And hopefully the NFL, a lot of these teams will get back to that instead of throwing the ball all the time that they throw the ball. So it's a good thing to sit up there and to see these guys doing this. And I'm applauding what Dallas has done. I'm applauding what they're doing over at Arizona. I applaud definitely what they're doing at Pittsburgh. They've always ran the ball at Pittsburgh, and a lot of these teams need to take heed to that. And if that was something that Atlanta would have done, the game would have been over. The game would have been over. But all of a sudden, you get inside the 20, we're gonna try to throw the ball. You don't have to do that. Run the football. That's what NFL was built on, was running the football. It was about the running backs. Yeah, the quarterback got the press, but it was all at the end of the day, it was about getting there and calling the plays in that huddle. When you got down to the 20 into the red zone, it was time to sit up there and you ran the ball. It's man on man. Mano a mano. That's how you did. You ran the football. You shoved it down their throat. And you can blow people out because a great running game will demoralize a defense in a heartbeat. Because your big men are wearing their big men out. And every time you look up, them guys 4 yards, 5 yards, 3 yards, 6 yards, 7 yards, then bam, you're going to bust one in you in the second, then before you know it, you can wear a team out. So here they go again. And if you know, and they know it's coming, but you can't stop it. And that's one of the great things about football, one of the great things about the running game, how it can literally demoralize a team. And you can take advantage of that. And help get yourself closer and closer without putting your quarterback in harm's way. If you know he's going to throw the ball every time he's in a shotgun and getting ready to throw the ball, because that's all they do nowadays. So it's really good to see that come back, and you also want to see other great running backs to start coming in. But we'll see what happens though. That's something I definitely would like to see put back in the game, an emphasis on great running backs once again, like it was in the days before. You know, but that's what I wanted to talk about tonight, about, you know, running backs and whatnot. And like I say, when you take Adrian Peterson, it's like it's kind of a gap because he's the most consistent one over the past 10 years, and everybody else is fluctuating. But I think now it's coming to a point where the running back is starting to be prevalent again in the NFL. You can check me out at Everything Football 62 on YouTube. You can check me out on Twitter, Everything Football, Uncut Man 62. Subscribe to my channel. Check me out on Twitter, and have a good one. Thanks.